There was that big announcement with Johnny Ive and Sam Altman. They had fun little pictures together. And then things went dark. Websites started getting scrubbed and everyone was like, what is going on? And it came out that they have been sued. People have sort of been distrustful of Sam Altman. Then about a week later, they announced this marriage between Johnny Ive and OpenAI. It doesn't smell so good on the surface.
Liz, full docket today. We're going to talk about potentially the marriage of Johnny Ive and Sam Altman already going through a divorce. We've got some updates on Google's DeepMind, as well as potentially some fair use rulings for Claude and Meta. And then in the second half of the conversation, you're going to walk me, an idiot, through the process of artifacts in Claude. You know those things where when you're like working within a Claude chat and you actually create a document or a dashboard, and then you have to go back and think like, oh, where was that thing? Oh, did I save that to my desktop? Okay, well, Claude has now made that way easier for you to go back and look at the artifacts that you created and generated. And you are going to walk us through how to navigate the new system, because I'm stupid and I need to actually see how it's done. So I'm excited. That's all going to happen today. But first, what's going on with IO?
So all of a sudden, about a little bit over a week ago, there was obviously that big announcement with Johnny Ive and Sam Altman. They had fun little pictures together. And then things went dark. The website started getting scrubbed and everyone was like, what is going on? And it came out that they have been sued by a company called IO, not IO, but IYO. And apparently it's over the trademark of it, but it sounds like there's a lot more underneath that's a bit fishier and sketchy. So people have sort of been distrustful of Sam Altman. I don't know, everyone have your opinion of it. But basically what happened was apparently this company IYO, that was a spin out of Google's X Lab or something. They basically have developed these really interesting wearable earbud technology, and we're trying to get acquired by OpenAI. And then about a week later, they announced this marriage between Johnny Ive and OpenAI. So apparently there's been, data that was shared. Who knows? We'll probably find out more in the coming weeks. But, it doesn't smell so good on the surface.
And IO, was this what they were calling the new product or this new division within OpenAI?
Yes.
Yeah, it does. It does not look good. So looking through this, IYO, like you said, was spun out from Google X. It was one of their projects that they were working on. They've raised over $60 million. They met with Johnny Ive and Sam Altman twice, potentially to acquire them. I don't know under what circumstances. And then they decided to get together. Obviously, Sam Altman and Johnny Ive, they launched, it's called IO, the letters IO as opposed to IYO. And now video's been scrubbed. A lot of information has been scrubbed online. Like it doesn't look good. What do you think the chances are this gets unwound?
I mean, I think it'll be fine, honestly. I don't know how much cash they have in the bank because they've been spending from what I understand. But I mean, they're doing fine from at least a revenue standpoint. So I think they'll figure out and navigate how to manage this. It seems to be a trademark issue. There are plenty of, I'm not a lawyer, but I think they'll figure out a way to navigate it so that they can create a wearable. Now, again, I think it's like if there was some interesting IP they were going to leverage that in actuality, there you go. But again, it seems like they'll either pay them off in a settlement, or they'll figure out like how to create a hole so that it doesn't actually conflict. Like there will be some kind of payoff on this, but
it does feel like Sam Altman is just continuing to craft this image of ruthless Machiavellian leadership.
Yeah.
Again, these are just facts right now. Elon Musk is disputing the relationship that he had with Sam Altman and the understanding they had of what OpenAI was going to be. He's now turning it from a nonprofit into a for-profit. There's lots of questions around that. He's also got into a tiff with IO, right? It's like he goes and gets Johnny Ive, and now there's this weird relationship where it's like, wait a second, did he steal their IP? What's happening here? I think Mark Andreessen was the venture capitalist who said, basically, if Sam Altman was left on an island with everybody else in Silicon Valley, he would become the Lord of the Flies within a year. Like he would be the leader of that island because he understands how to work the room and the politics behind it. So I don't know, just all these little data points. Sam very much plays this like, oh, it's going to be world changing technology and kumbaya. And behind the scenes, he's a killer. I mean, I don't mean it like an actual killer, but he's
Cutthroat.
got the Mamba mentality. He's going out and executing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, and that brings up another challenge that they've had with another acquisition that they were trying to do with Windsurf, which a couple of months back, this was sort of the competitor to Cursor, which is how people are basically coding with AI. And they were going to acquire it for over $3 billion. And then Claude basically cut off their data to Windsurf. And it's sort of, there are some rumors, it's unclear if that's going to continue. I'm sure the acquisition will continue. But it was basically in response to a lot of the stuff that Anthropic, Claude, I'll use those interchangeably, are doing because they are really going aggressive on code and starting to be more focused in that regard. And they have been sort of praised as a leader. I mean, some people will argue O3 is better, whatever. But even last week, Claude came out with, or a couple weeks ago, Claude came out with something called Claude Code and really sort of moved the needle. So it's basically like these wars that are going on between them around coding. And then, so after Claude cut off Windsurf from their data, because it was basically seen as Windsurf was going to be utilizing that for OpenAI and doing some training off of it. And obviously, Anthropic doesn't trust OpenAI. So it's unclear now how things are going to play out. Yeah. So it's like, it's wars basically right now between the LLMs.
We already don't trust people with the data. And now it's like, oh, also you have this supercomputer.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Take my data and use the supercomputer to plot against me. It's just freaking nuts. In other supercomputer news, actually, before we get to that next story, something I'm noticing is I don't hear as much about AGI anymore. For those who don't know, AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence, which is effectively intelligence that's on the same level or above that of humans. And they used to talk about it a lot, like, oh, it's around the corner, AGI is coming. And I just don't feel like I've heard it. Now it's sort of changed to this new term, super computing, or I can't remember what Meta's new division is called, but
Superintelligence, new market.
Superintelligence. That's more just an observation. I think it's interesting how it's kind of like shifted and they're admitting AGI is not around the corner.
I think there's just looking at where we are now versus a year ago, I mean, the level of sort of agentic capability, meaning that AI can go and do tasks on its own. It's now incorporated into a lot of tools, but you still have to sort of guide it. And so however people, I don't even know if there was a clear definition to say like the yes or the no it was created. But yeah, I mean, it seems like there's more optimism in that humans are somewhat important, but I think also again, the value of what was historically created with code and what AI can now sort of take over from a task perspective, like the value there is getting crushed. So, I mean, it's hard to predict. I would be foolish to say I have any sort of clarity on this because nobody does, and anyone that sort of suggests that they do have that view, maybe some of the cool sci-fi people do, but I don't know where it's going to go. But yeah, they're, I think, just remarketing things, whether or not they just need a new term to get people excited, or this sort of moving benchmark is just, unclear of what it actually
maybe they're realizing.
So
to your point, yeah, they're either realizing it's harder than it should be, or than they said it would be, or they're rebranding it. Yeah, it's one of the two things. That leads us though into the next discussion that we highlighted in the beginning, which is this fair use and what Anthropic is going through.
Yep.
So I'll highlight really quickly what fair use is and traditionally what it's been, and then we can talk about what it means for Anthropic. Hey, I don't know if you remember this, but when we started this podcast, we entered into a social contract. I would spend time, energy, and money producing this podcast, interviewing these individuals and giving you insights into how to build, buy, start, grow your business. And you would like, subscribe, and leave me 5-star review. Now, out of that, we both get to talk to really cool people and hear really cool insights. We both get a ton of value. But I just want to help you keep your word. So would you do me a favor? Will you go leave a 5-star review for me on Apple or Spotify? It would really help. And if you want, even share this with a friend. Fair use effectively means if I publish something and I have a copyright or a trademark, or I've created a piece of content or media, somebody else can't just take it, repost it, and do whatever they want with it, and then generate dollars or make money off of it. That wouldn't be okay. Let's say that you wrote The Grapes of Wrath, and I ended up taking it, self-publishing it, and then selling it on my own website, The Grapes of Wrath. It's like, well, Nick, you didn't write the Grapes of Wrath. Why are you selling it? I can't do that. What fair use does, though, is it allows you to take a work and make it your own, make it unique. So if Liz posts a video about AI and I take a 60-second clip of it and I show her talking and then I do a talking head response to it, that can be considered fair use. Or if I take a clip of a show and I maybe put myself on a green screen behind it, that might be fair use. Or if I buy a copyrighted thing and then give attribution, that might be fair use. So the fair use has sort of evolved as the internet age has come about. But now there's a ton of other fair use questions because these models are using copyrighted materials to train. So how are the owners of that intellectual capital compensated?
Yep.
And there's a lot of questions. And so Anthropic right now is in the middle of a lawsuit regarding fair use.
Yep. Over the last week, there's actually been two sort of pivotal results. So both Anthropic as well as Meta. So essentially, they were training on publicly accessible data sources. Meta was using books to transform their Llama model, and they were again trying to prove this fair use context. And then Anthropic also was using copyrighted books, but essentially there was, I guess, a term called like exceedingly transformative that was enabling them to sort of get around this. So as they say, good artists copy and then great
Copying.
steal. And so this is essentially what we're seeing is that by, combining all these different data sources, whether it's I guess Anthropic used something called the LibGen library. It has 7 million pirated books. And so they were sort of saying, well, these are, pirated and this and that. But apparently, again, this just is enabling them to utilize publicly information. And so basically, as they say, if you don't, well, I guess anything you put out there is being utilized now by the algorithms and AI. So if you want to keep something private, don't share it.
It's a very weird thing because they can go and they can crawl and they can train all their models on this stuff. And then there's no attribution for it. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to have an opinion on it. But I do think that for us, as we're looking at it, there will be cascading effects down the road. I mean, Hollywood in the form of entertainment is going to change. I mean, just look at what it did to newspapers in the first iteration of the internet, right? It's probably going to do to entertainment in the second iteration of the internet. But anyways.
Well, actually, on that note, there was a statistic that came out this last week saying that even the traffic to news sites, because of AI, not even because of social media, but because of AI, has gone down by like 23 or 20 some percent over the last 2 years. So that is having a huge impact. Yeah. So
let's get to the meat and potatoes because I'm excited to really look at this. I want to know about Claude's artifacts because I use Claude a lot. I use it for very specific things. I love the way that they have projects, but this issue of artifacts has been a consistent issue for me. And for people who are listening, think of an artifact just effectively as something that you created. It could be a template, it could be a document, it could be a dashboard, it could be an Excel spreadsheet. Anything that you used AI to help you create at any time, we're going to just call that an artifact. We're not saying document or spreadsheet or whatever the term might be. It's artifact. And Claude's had this ability for a little while, but they just did something recently in the last week, at least this is what Liz tells me, that has made the ability to search, find, and utilize these artifacts much easier and accessible.
Yes. So before, over on this little sidebar over here, you would just have chat and projects, and now artifacts. So again, before what you would do is you would go into one of your chats, and let me pull up. Okay, I was looking at Riley Brown's, he has a great podcast on stuff. And so when you go in and you create, let's say I took a transcript I wanted to summarize to give me a guide for growing my audience. And so it created a document like that.
If you're just listening or watching, effectively what it spit out was a Word document of a step-by-step, hey, copying this person, here's how you could grow your audience. But it's in the Word document format.
Exactly. And then in other instances, like I would generate a cool little tool, but I'm like, okay, this is cool.
Oh, yeah.
I have it here. I was talking about last week. It was really hard to export this. And then I had to share a link and all that. And then in other cases, it's like you're building little, HTML dashboards or software tools that are interactive. And so it was, one, really hard to find, as you mentioned, once you created them. And then two, it was like, okay, great, this is cool, but now how do I make it useful? And so what this allows, so first off, if you create anything, you have now just an easy way to access them. So here are all the ones you created. And then if you publish it, by
Oh,
going back
wow.
into the chat. Let's see. Okay, so here you basically would you publish, and then you can copy a link and share that with other people.
Why would you publish it?
This is, again, just making it shareable for other people. So you created this cool little
Oh, got
dashboard,
it.
and I want to say, hey, Nick, check out, my pitch deck here. And
Mhm.
then you can share this link and other people can access it. They can interact with it. This one was a PDF, so it's not really interactive, but
Okay.
you can have like dashboards and things. And so
within Claude on the left-hand side, there's chats, projects, and now it says artifacts?
yes, that is correct.
Okay.
So the cool thing though, so again, now it's like, yes, it's helpful for search and accessibility, organization. Okay, I get excited about that. But what's more interesting is they are now helping to guide people to actually produce these little tools. And so they have this tab called inspiration, which I just thought was pretty cool. So now they obviously
Where is this inspiration tab?
this is
I'm sorry.
literally just click on artifacts and it'll pop you right over there. And it's the first thing you see. So there's an upper thing that says inspiration, and then next to it is my
Got it.
artifacts.
Can you search? You can't. It doesn't look like there's a search function
No,
within your artifacts.
let's see. Yeah, not yet. That's unfortunate. I'm sure they'll have that at
Okay.
some point here. So that's still a bit of a challenge. But anyhow.
Oh, and so is this inspiration other artifacts that other
Yes,
people have published?
exactly. So it's like there are some common
Oh,
use cases that I'm sure Anthropic sort of looked at their own code and did an analysis where people build
yeah.
regularly.
So video's cool, but I have what scientists call a face for radio. And so what's even cooler is long form audio via my podcast and my newsletter, nikonomicspod.com. Go there for free. Subscribe to my newsletter. It's 1 email per week. It's super tactical. And then go to my audio podcast. I do 3 to 5 episodes a week, depending on how curious I am. And it's stuff like this. It's all free. No sleazy sales pitches. nikonomicspod.com. Again, if you're listening, we're in Claude on the left-hand side. There's chats, projects, and now there's artifacts. We're under inspiration. And even under inspiration, there's like these sub tabs of learn something, life hacks, play a game, be creative, touch grass. And we're scrolling through what other people. Ooh, a trivia game. Look at that. Look at that. Hold on. Go. So click on that. I'm curious.
Hold on, trivia. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so she just clicked on the trivia game.
And so now you can do first, it gives you the prompt. So it helps guide you in learning better prompts. It'll give you then the full chat of how this was generated, because it wasn't like one-shotted.
Wait. I could look at the chat that you used to create something?
Yes. And then we'll get into the customization. So I just clicked on the chat. And so as you can see here, it goes all the way up to the top, create a trivia game, trivia app in React. I won't read the whole thing, but you can click on it. It provides that. It analyzes data, gives you sort of the flow. And then it said, okay, I like it. The glow should, it had some iterations and stuff. And so
Dude,
yeah.
that is so interesting. Chris and I were just talking about this, not even on a podcast. We were just like on the phone, and he was like, I think there could be a cool community where people would share their chats to show how they got to an output.
Yep.
He's like, do you think people would pay for that? And I was like, I mean, I think people would be interested in it, but I don't know exactly how it would work. But that's exactly what this is. You can publish these artifacts and see exactly how they got to it.
Yeah.
They're like, it's their chain of thought.
And that actually brings up a whole other point too. It's like all of these little ideas of even building trivia tools or whatever and little apps. I just feel like the LLMs are just getting into the space and crushing all these little startups. Like there was a startup that I even saw that built a couple of tools that are just like crushed if you have,
Well, go back to that trivia thing, because it said you could customize it.
Yes, this is where it gets exciting. So now you can adapt it to your needs. It gives you the framework, and now we can prompt if you want to change basically the functionality, if you want to change the categories, what the goal is, like you can change all of that now. So because it's given you now the artifact as a starting point, as a template.
Okay, so Liz clicked on this, and as I'm looking at it now, on the left-hand side in the prompt window, Claude's basically telling me, hey, transform any artifact into something uniquely yours. Here are the elements you can do. 1, you could change the topic. You could adapt the content for a different subject. 2, you could update the style. 3, you could make it personal. 4, you could share your vision. And then it asks you, where do you want me to begin? So this is a trivia game right now that says, test your knowledge with Claude-generated trivia questions, and there's categories, etc. So I, for example, actually try this, Liz, say, I'm a 39-year-old parent. I have 2 boys, ages 11 and 8. I would like to have a round robin trivia game with them where the questions difficulty is tailored to each person's age. I wonder if it will be able to do that. It should be. All right, and she's just typing that out. She hit enter. And I'm sorry, Liz, if you're not 39, because now it's going to be like, wait a second. Liz is 30. Oh, it's transforming it.
Yes.
I will transform this into a family round robin trivia game. And you can see it. It's pumping out the code right now, right in front of our eyes. What the freak? By the way, your kids are kind of my kids' ages. Have you ever played trivia games with them in ChatGPT?
We did a family
or Claude?
We did a family road trip. We had ChatGPT give us ideas for games, and then we did that, like, here's a story, then have the next one add to the story, and it basically was able to remember the whole story, and it added a little bit to it. So it was like really fun. We did it for about an hour, and it worked really well. It was actually a really fun game. So we didn't do trivia, but we did that on our road trip.
That's amazing. Can I tell you, my dad came last week, and one of the things I did is, you know how it is when grandparents come. They're just always well, at least my dad, he's always talking and telling stories, and he's super interesting. He was born in Germany, raised in Brazil, came to the United States, professional soccer player. But I gave my son my pendant and I turned it on, you know, my little limitless AI. And they talked for hours while he was here over the course of time. And so it recorded all of their conversations. And now I have his voice, obviously, but I have the stories. And I thought that's going to be a really, really cool memory for my kids. It's like, now I can take those stories. And it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't had, you know, AI or the ability to record them. So
I mean,
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, no, that is so cool. And I know you and Chris have like sort of even talked about those ideas before on one of your pods about, you know, being better memory catcher. But like, that's huge because we're all are losing family stories and we all want that history. I love that.
All right. So this is, I don't know how close it is.
There we go.
Oh,
perfect timing.
There it is.
Oh, cool. Okay. So we'll say,
oh my gosh.
buddy, we'll say, whoops, they put in so you can categorize them like 8 years old. Categories: general knowledge, sports, history. Very cool. All right. Questions per player. All right. So let's just press go and see what happens.
Let's see here.
All right.
So if you scroll up, there's no way to add. Oh, you could add another player if you wanted to.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Oops. Maybe we need to because for some reason it was struggling a bit there.
No worries. But I just think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry to like derail you.
No.
Holy crap.
Exactly.
I can take other people's artifacts and just tailor it to myself. That's amazing.
Totally. So a couple other things I just wanted to share because I think there's some other use cases that might not be as obvious for people to consider. So a couple weeks ago, we started sharing about MCP, Model Context Protocol, and hooking up Claude to that. So one thing I've started playing around with, and I haven't perfected this workflow, so hopefully this works. But once you get some of these, you can sort of think as your MCP as the data retrieval, and then these little tools and artifacts with that nice UI that helps sort of guide you through your prompting or whatever you want to create as, you know, the visual output, that it helps populate the data. So you don't even have to write things. It'll access some of the data, populate it into your tool, and then output it. So let me give an example. So I just ran this and I can redo it. I just, for time's sake, what I asked this meeting notes summary tool to do was to use my Google Drive that it has access to then find one of the most recent meetings I had, and then to populate those raw meeting notes into this little box here. And then I pressed summarize and it went ahead and summarized it. So we can just sort of recreate this here. Let me go back over.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was one example. Let me just see if I can do it live to show something cool. And then,
Liz, you know what this is doing is like, this is taking on sort of the lowest level of Lovable and Replit.
Yes.
Like this is the wrapper that we all talk about.
Exactly.
Like now you can natively create a wrapper by creating these artifacts within Claude.
Yep. And it's like, you know, there's the AI automation piece with and AI agents, which essentially are doing tasks and they can do them more recurringly. Unfortunately, Claude doesn't really have that recurability yet. I've been trying to solve that here, but like a lot of stuff you still want to iterate through. But one of the challenges is that, you know, you, even though you might give your project knowledge some general instructions of how you want an output to help with the recurring prompt, sometimes it's visual. Sometimes there's just like different decision points. And this just creates like a nice way to interface with as well. So like you can easily go through those steps. And so that's why I really like, again, wrapping around whatever your workflow is with these tools. And then again, getting creative of calling your MCP to gather the data that you have elsewhere to then bring it over here.
So when I have workflows that I've set up through Zapier, for example,
Yes.
they're calling on OpenAI's API and I'm paying for the token usage. Why wouldn't it be the same here? Am I paying for the token usage if I share this with people?
No. Actually, that's a good question. That's actually a very good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Because I mean, essentially, so I have the max plan. So I wouldn't say it's not unlimited, but it sort of is close enough. Like I haven't hit a rate limit and I use it pretty regularly. But the lower level plans, you do hit rate limits. So I'm sure if you do share it, I don't know if it pulls from your rates. Now I want
Do you have to?
Yeah.
Are you only able to use this within the Claude ecosystem, or can you publish this to like a landing page?
So when you
that then I could go and use a quiz or something?
You'd have to export the files to have it hosted elsewhere. If you want it hosted on Claude, it basically gives you like a Claude link. But if you wanted to actually copy the code, you can easily do that and export the code. Like it absolutely allows you to do that as a part of it.
Because then you would copy the code, export it, and then you could go to Lovable or Replit and say, here's the code. I want you to have an API tie with Claude or OpenAI, and then you would pay for the API. Okay, that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. But again, like there's certain workflows where it's like API costs are actually more expensive. So being able to like just use it in your sort of single player mode or your iterative, it might make more sense. There's plenty of, I think, use cases and workflows that people are still like in this browser versus just needing a full automation that they're not touching until sort of the end result that I've seen at least. And it seems,
I mean, I was thinking of the artifact as just being, oh, this is the Word document or Excel document that I created, but these are
tools.
It's almost like you're creating custom wrappers.
Yes, that's essentially what you're doing. Yeah. Like they're just little tools.
It's more than a GPT. Like a GPT is just, hey, here's the prompt, do this. This has, the output is much different than just a custom GPT. I wonder, like, what would be an example of a good workflow?
Okay, so right now I have the email writing assistant, which they had as one of their templates. So now what I'm doing, I'm going to ask Claude to say, get my most recent email from Nick and populate the respective fields in this artifact based on that email. We'll say using Gmail tool. All right. So let's see if it does that. I had also tried to add like a couple other steps to it. Let me just pop over there while this is working to see if it actually worked.
Oh, because you've already got Gmail tied in.
Yeah, exactly.
Now it can go to Gmail, pull what Nick's last email was, and then do, oh wow.
Yeah. So like I started customizing that specific workflow to say like, could I also have it go? So I have Appify, which is a scraping tool to help get more data. Could it also help add that in? So it was able to like break out here sender info. And then I was going to have it sort of as a workflow from getting the sender info to then go and scrape data based on the user. So I haven't tested that yet, but that's how sort of I'm thinking about it is like, what are all those steps of that I would have that maybe, the MCP, or it would have a long prompt, or it would.
Well, yeah. So that leads me to the next question. So now, especially because Claude integrates with Zapier, is there a box? I don't even know what words to use.
Yeah.
When you're creating the email, you have the email template thing. So if people who are looking at this, Liz went to the artifact, she found this email template. Can you put in there not only pull Nick's email, but then also through Zapier go to, I don't know, Lemlist or some other email software and actually send it through that?
Yes, I would guess so.
Oh, jeez.
I'm going to play around with that for next week because I just started, playing around with this week. And so there's still a lot to figure out here, but I'll test that. I had to unfortunately disable Zapier here because it was causing some.
My brain is breaking by this, Liz. I'm like, oh my gosh.
But I'll figure out a fun workflow we can use for next week where we will incorporate in Zapier with artifacts and some MCP excitement, and we'll see what we can come up with to see if we can blow some minds or if it's really possible to do what we would hope.
Because with artifacts, you can pull in other APIs, which that's the thing that's
yes.
Man, that's the thing that's really crazy about it. Because you could build something that's like, hey, build me a valuation calculator. And the valuation calculator needs specific information. Let's say it's a business. Like, oh, well, I need the revenue. I need the bottom line. I need where it is. I need what it does, blah, blah, blah. But theoretically, you could have a spreadsheet database of all of those characteristics, and it could go out, pull that data, and bring it in without you having to copy and paste it in or like do some random workaround.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you win. You officially blew my mind this week.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad. And yeah, so here's like a project dashboard here. So that's like a good starting point for anyone that wants to do some of that dashboarding. But yeah, this is pretty exciting stuff.
Cool. All right. Well, I hope somebody builds some cool stuff with it and lets us know what they're doing. Until next week, this was great, Liz. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Hopefully you liked that episode. And if you've made it this far, you're either really committed or you're stuck doing yard work and you can't actually skip on your phone. So while I have you, the show is growing, but I have a favor to ask of you. Will you please help me grow the show? I want to reach more people. There's a couple things that you can do. Like and subscribe is the simplest thing. Obviously, you want to get notifications for when the next episode is coming out. But if you go the next step, will you leave me a review? 5-star on Spotify or Apple. What that does is it tells the algorithm that, oh, hey, this is a high value podcast because more people are leaving reviews for it, and it then pushes it out to more people. So that's why when people are like, will you like and subscribe and put a 5-star rating? It's not just to make themselves feel better. It's actually to get more exposure for the show. So if you do that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.